Well, hello and welcome back. My name is David Breslow. I am the founder of Performance Success Strategies and the creator of Wired to Win. So I want to welcome you to today's podcast, which I am titling Rancid Milk and Other Mental Mistakes. So let me get right into it here. Today's podcast is going to reveal the often ignored reason that change is so difficult for so many of us. For example, maybe there's a golfer who wants to shoot lower or better scores, or an actor who wants to be more confident going into auditions or going on set to perform. Or maybe it's a tennis player who wants to be better at match play and be more mentally tough when competing. Or maybe it's an entrepreneur who just wants to be more successful and more confident in their business and so on and so forth. Or it just really could be any individual who wants to be, let's say, more confident, a better speaker, a better communicator, or a better person, or any one of the many, many, many different qualities a human being would want to improve in. So what generally happens when there's something that we become aware of that we know is not as up to the level that we'd like it to be and we'd like to improve upon it? What do? Well, generally what folks do is they go out and gather more information. Let's face it, we live in a very information laden society, don't we? It's all about the data, it's all about the information. So we've been trained through society to gather and gather and gather more and more and more. So how do we do that? We go online, we buy programs for 30 bucks, 90 bucks, 500 bucks. We read books, we watch Oprah. Okay. I know that's kind of old fashioned now because she's not even on TV anymore, but, or we hire coaches, we hire teachers, we go to spiritual coaches if that's the arena that we're looking to invest in. Whatever it is, any one of those things is what most of us tend to do. But here's what's interesting. I have been in the coaching arena for over 25 years. And generally, the people that call me are pretty frustrated because they pretty much tried just about everything out there and they haven't been getting the results. So basically, 89% of them say that they get sporadic or no results at all from all these programs that they go to. And I mean, could it really be that all these programs really aren't that good? No, I don't think that's it at all. A lot of programs have some terrific information and terrific strategies and tips and so on and so forth. And there's a bunch of others that just are very mediocre as well. But it's just interesting to me that I get a high percentage of folks who call me after they've tried everything and then they hear about me. They've heard I'm this kind of weird guy. That's not what they say, but I'm using that word. I'm kind of this weird guy that doesn't teach the same thing that they've been learning in other places. I stay away from the platitudes and what I call the psychobabble and all that good stuff. And then they eventually hear about me and call me up and say, "Hey, man, you're like my last resort." And I'm like, "Oh, great." But it's just interesting to me how many are frustrated. 89% say that they've gotten either sporadic results or really no results at all. So I started wondering about that. And I realized there's a very fundamental reason that I'd like to address here in this podcast with you today. So I'm going to ask you to join me in this. I'm going to ask you to use your imagination, or if you want to take out a piece of paper, you can actually write on it if you want. But here's the image I would like you to begin with. Imagine that you're holding two tennis balls. If you can't imagine that, then just write two circles on a piece of paper, fairly large, two separate circles, and label one of them circle one, or label one ball circle one. Label the other ball or the other circle circle two. Now here's what I'd like you to know. Circle one contains all of the beliefs, all your limitations, all your fears, your doubts, your assumptions, your experiences, all the things that you've experienced up until this minute of your life. And I'm not saying that everything in there is bad. Of course, you've had some wonderful experiences, but don't we tend to focus on and get moved by the negativity more than the positivity? Most people would agree that they do. So circle one contains all of that stuff, and circle two is where your freedom is. Circle two, as you can see on your paper, or if you can imagine holding one ball in one hand and one in the other, circle two is not connected to circle one. In fact, you cannot use anything in circle one to get into circle two. Circle two is where your freedom is. There are no limitations in circle two. It's a clean slate. You get a chance and an opportunity to use and adopt whatever beliefs you want. You get a chance and an opportunity to perform the way that you know you can perform. All of the things you're looking for exist in circle two already without the constraints of circle one. So what is the mistake that most of us make? Well, once we realize there's an area we want to work on, let's say confidence, for example, to get more specific. So you want to improve your confidence. So what do? You read a book, you go to a class, you go to a seminar, you get a coach, whatever you might do. It's all fine. But here's what's interesting and what's not addressed often enough, in my opinion. Understand, if you look at circle one on your paper, or imagine the tennis ball, you're still hanging out mentally in circle one. It's what I call a logical error. Logically, it makes perfect sense, right? Because you're sitting there going, well, I need to be more confident, Dave. So of course it makes sense that I would go do things that help me do that. And I'm like, of course it makes sense. But it actually doesn't make sense when you understand what's really happening. And that's what I want to point out to you here today. It doesn't make sense because you must start to understand and realize that you're still hanging out in circle one while you're going to these classes and reading the books and doing whatever you're doing. So you're still bumping up against all the new information you're getting is bumping up against all of the toxic stuff that already exists in circle one. Do you get it? You haven't done anything about that. And you don't really need to, but that's another conversation. But what I want you to see right now is you have all this garbage, this toxic garbage, I call it, existing in circle one, and you're swimming in the toxic garbage while you're going and reading these new books and taking new classes and trying to adopt new beliefs and whatever it is you're trying to do. You must understand that the reason it's not impacting you the way you'd like it to, or as quickly as you'd like it to, is because you're dumping all the new stuff into the old stuff. And here's where the rancid milk theory comes into play. Imagine this. When you go to your refrigerator and you open it up and you see a quart of milk in there and you open it up and it smells and you realize that it's rotten. And then you decide to go to the store and you get another quart of fresh milk and you bring it back. When you bring that new milk back, do you open up the old milk and pour the new milk into it, hoping that the old milk will start to smell and taste better? Well, of course you don't. Nobody does that. When you get the rancid milk, you just throw it out. But consider what I'm saying here. It's exactly what you're doing. When you go out and pay money and put energy into and time into a new program and new tips and new strategies and so on and so forth, what you're really doing is you're pouring that new information, the new milk, into the rancid milk, which is your circle one mind. You get it? And that's why you get frustrated. That's why you're not seeing changes the way you want to. It's not the information itself. It's the rancid milk that you're pouring it into. And so since circle one is loaded with rancid milk, stuff that stinks, it smells, it's not doing you any good anymore and really never did. You're pouring the new good stuff into that old stuff, and that's why nothing's happening. So the joke is on us because circle two, look at your paper, imagine the tennis balls. Circle two is still sitting over there waiting for you to jump into it. Waiting for you to jump into it. And it's not going to yell at you. It's not going to talk loudly and drag you over. It's not its job. Circle one is the one with the loud voice. And a lot of times when I tell this to folks, they kind of compare it to the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. And you could do that. I'm going to do a podcast fairly soon on labels and language, because no matter what you do, every person seems to have their language and the words they use to describe things and the labels they use and all that stuff. So if it helps you to look at it as circle one is your conscious mind, circle two is your unconscious mind, which is where all the magic is, has all that power. You could do that if it helps. It's fine. I don't think of it that way, but it's fine if it works for you. Great. It's all that matters. But keep in mind that the reason you're wasting time, money, and energy when you do things like this is that you're dumping what eventually could be some really good information into a garbage bin, a toxic garbage bin, rancid milk. That's what you're dumping it in. And you're hoping that it smells better, but it never really does it? Now, you don't have to believe me. Look at your own experience. How many times have you gone out and tried a new program or got some new information, however you obtained it, and then you got very sporadic results? Yeah, you got a little bit improvement, but it didn't last very long, or no improvement at all. Because think about it. Think about the Circle One tennis ball. You're still hanging out there while you're doing it. So let's say you do have a little improvement. All you're doing is kind of moving from one edge of Circle One near to the other edge, but you're still in Circle One. You get it? You're still in Circle One. You're not in the freedom of Circle Two, not even close. And that's why you're having the frustrating experience. So if you listen to this again and you really take in what I'm saying here, it will make perfect sense to you as to why we continue to get frustrated, even though we think we're helping ourselves and we think we're doing the right thing. That's that logical error that I talked about earlier. Because the logical mind says, well, if you want to get to this place with your confidence, then you need to go do this. But it doesn't tell you that you're still hanging out in the toxicity of Circle One, because it doesn't even know that. It's completely unaware of that because it is Circle One. Now, you remember a guy named Einstein? Yeah, that Einstein, Albert Einstein. He came up with a quote a long time ago that really describes what's going on here. And I'm going to paraphrase here a little bit. The quote was something like, you can't solve a problem using the same mind that caused the problem in the first place. And that's exactly the trap that we fall into. Circle One is your old mind. It's the mind that you've been using for decades to use and create whatever conditions you have. And that is where it all begins, in Circle One. If that's your conscious mind, that's the way you want to look at it. That's exactly what the conscious mind does. It makes these decisions. It analyzes, it weighs, it balances, makes these decisions, and sends all of that stuff into the subconscious mind, where all the magic is. The subconscious mind just takes all that information in and literally creates those experiences for you. So if you want to compare that to the tennis balls, Circle One, Circle Two, great. But the bottom line is, you cannot use the same mind that caused the problem to solve the problem. And that's the big error that most of us make. We are stuck in Circle One, and we hang out in Circle One, and we think that's where the solution is going to come from. But you have to remember, Circle One only knows what you know up until this moment in time. That's it. It doesn't come up with anything new. There's nothing creative in Circle One. All of that exists in Circle Two. None of that exists in Circle Two and Circle One, I'm sorry. So you're basically asking Circle One to do something it can't do. It doesn't know how to do that. So I'm hoping that makes a lot of sense to you. Consider the Circle One, Circle Two example. Consider the rotten milk theory, or the toxic milk theory, and try to stay away from doing that over and over again. So, Dave Breslow, glad to be with you. As always, I would love to hear anything from you. You're welcome to email at david.a.breslow@gmail.com with any of your comments or feedback. And of course, you're welcome to visit me. Bring your favorite drink with you. Come and visit me and sit down and hang out at any one of these three websites. For personal development, www.davebreslow.com. Or if you're a golfer, go to www.mentalgolfcoaching.com. Or if you're a tennis player, go to www.mentaltenniscoach.com. Would love to have you come over and take a visit. So Dave Breslow, thank you for hanging out with me in today's podcast. Hope you learned something. I'll talk to you soon.